to the first seminar in a three-part series focused on innovation and the geopolitics of water. I'm Martina Klimes, advisor for Water and Peace at the Stockholm International Water Institute, and it's my pleasure that I'm joined here by my colleague on the World Scientific Planning Program Committee, Aaron Salzberg. And Aaron is the director of the Water Institute at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And we are here today to introduce what we think will be a very exciting seminar series to explore the relationships between scientific, technical, and social innovation and geopolitics over water. We also recommend that you read our recent contribution on this topic, and we will post a link to the chat very soon. So now over to you, Aaron.
Oh, thanks, Martina. Like many of you who are joining us today, we believe that technology and innovation are reshaping the geopolitical landscape of water. Our ability to measure, model, forecast is greater than ever, but maybe exceeding our absorptive capacity and our adaptive capacities. In fact, our inability to manage information, to distinguish fact from fiction, misinformation from disinformation, can reshape the political landscape surrounding transboundary water disputes. Adding to this complexity is that the technology divide is likely to grow, generating greater inequalities in access and use of information, particularly in fragile and conflict-affected regions. Yet these factors will shape the political environment and power dynamics around shared waters and add stress to those areas of the world already struggling to adapt to climate change, the energy transition, and broader environmental, economic, and security concerns.
And we will be exploring these issues throughout all three sessions. I recommend you follow also the sessions on Monday and Tuesday. You can follow them online, and we will also post links to these sessions. But today's discussion will focus on the new technologies and innovations that are shaping the water sector.
And tomorrow at 4, live here at the Stockholm Conference Center, our second session, we use several regionally focused case studies to explore the impact of technologies on political processes related to water.
And finally, on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central European Time, also live here at the World Water Week in Stockholm, we will wrap up with a discussion with senior decision makers on how we can better integrate and manage the impacts of innovation in geopolitical processes related to water. And now, before turning over to Stefan Uhlenbrock, who will be opening and moderating today's discussion, and Stefan is the Director of Hydrology, Water, and Cryosphere at the World Meteorological Organization, we would like to give our special thanks to the co-conveners of this seminar series, and that is the Finnish Ministry for Foreign Affairs and the Finnish Water Forum, the International Crisis Group, and the United States Institute of Peace, and also the World Meteorological Organization. So thank you all very much for the support. And now over to you, Stefan.
Somebody.
Why don't you just,
That way you can just keep going if people can see you. So I think it's just the audio.
Okay, did somebody say you hear me now? Yes. Good.
Okay, third start. Can you mute in the room? Thank you. Good. Hey, my name is Stefan Ruhenburg, was introduced before. The problem was already nicely framed, not the technical problem we have at this moment with several computers in a room, which where the voice was challenging us a bit. No, I talk about the problem about geopolitical disputes around water management. One of the challenges that we don't have a common understanding about the status of water resources. How much water do we have, of which quality, and how does that water availability last year or currently how representative is that? Is that extremely wet or dry, or do we have a lot, or is it degrading? And so therefore, having an independent assessment about the status of the water resources is absolutely critical. Therefore, the World Meteorological Organization started last year to publish the first State of the Water report. And that state of the global water resources are summarized in this report. In this first pilot version from the year 2021, WMO published this report in collaboration with many partners, and now close to publishing is the 2022 report. And it's my distinct pleasure now to introduce the first keynote speaker of this afternoon, Dr. Elena Mannenkova. Dr. Mannenkova is the Deputy Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, and she will provide a keynote and also introduce some of the key results of the Global State of Water report. Over to Dr. Mannenkova. Dear Elena, please. We're very sorry, Elena. We can't hear you. You're unmuted. We don't know where the problem is. Any? Colleagues, we are very sorry we can't hear the keynote speaker. We of course we contacted the technical support unit, but no response yet. Elena, may I ask you to maybe disconnect and reconnect? I don't know what else we can do at this very moment. Yeah. Visible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Can you call?
Oh, like you can call in somebody. I don't. Do you have that?
And you rather, you prepare. Can you? What do you want me? You. Ladies first.
You answer?
Colleagues, can you say something?
Elena, could you try to speak again, please?
You do it? Okay. Colleagues, we do plan B. Fortunately, my dear colleague, Dr. Sulagna Mishra is sitting next to me, and we try to give Eleanor's presentation from here. We don't get it work. I'm so sorry. And if this doesn't work, third option would be myself giving it, but we try Dr. Mishra. Sulagna, please, over.
Do you hear me? Otherwise, I go there. Yes, no, it works. Hello, everyone. I'm filling in for dear Elena. Unfortunately, due to technical issues, I will give this presentation now on behalf of Elena. Thank you for this opportunity. And as Stefan just mentioned, we need water data and information. It's critical for all sectors of life that we can think of, starting from infrastructure to climate analysis to wash to food and agriculture, digital economy, you name it, and we need this information. However, the information that we have is, move to the next slide, please. However, the information that we have is very sparse, and we mainly need information from few key variables to be able to start taking decisions and to be able to plan our resources better. So the few things that we need to start with are stream flow, point river discharge. We need information on runoff, how much water is available in the ground, soil moisture, what's the water quality, how much water is stored in the snow, what's the snow water equivalent. However, only 84% of 75 WMO members who collect, who filled up a WMO hydro survey in 2020 told us that only 84% of the members do collect this information on stream flow, this being the very basic. And when we talk about the other variables, the numbers are even lower. So for example, the members who collect water quality information is less than 44%. Next slide, please. So what do we want? Our vision is to have ample amount of data, and not just data. We want this data to be transformed into information, which will be able to help us to make informed decision and will help us to support policy making. And for that, we need innovation, meaning we don't have the time to wait that we have plenty of monitoring stations. We have to be smart to couple all the existing solutions that we have in place. For example, ground-based observations, of course, but then couple it with remote sensing methods, including satellite, couple it with weather and climate forecast, use models, use AI, use different kinds of integration across web, and bring all these products that are existing at different scales, from national to basin to regional and global, to one standardized and accessible format, and in a way that's interoperable and can be used at different forms. So the idea is to have a globally consistent and accessible water information system. Next slide, please. So the need is to have innovative solutions, integration of the ground measurements, model results, remotely sensed data. We would also encourage sharing of data between various parties. For example, we should include private and public monitoring networks, use of AI in addition to the classically used data sources, and also include public engagements, for example, citizen science, image sharing, for example, to monitor flood. This has been done very frequently in the last few years, and these solutions need to be brought more on board and be coupled into our day-to-day practices. Next slide, please. And talking about innovative solutions, I would like to present one of WMO's product, which is a very typical example of what we are talking about. So WMO started publishing the State of the Water Resources report. We started last year with a pilot report, and with this report, we try to give an independent quantitative assessment of how much water resources is available at a global scale. We give an overview of the availability of water, but also the availability of data and how much data is actually being shared at a global scale. And this report was very well received by the members, by international organizations and media. But why do we really present the results here today when we are talking about innovation? Because the method that we incorporated to produce this result was rather very interesting. And the kind of data we used is actually an amalgamation of what we just spoke about. We used remote sensing, we used the development in the development process, we used land surface models, we used hydrological models, and we brought it all together to bring this comprehensive report forward. And it's the work in progress. Every year we try to include more and more features into the report. So I'll be giving a kind of a sneak peek, or we can call it as a soft launch of the 2022 water report. So this is still in press to be formally released in early October. What you see here is river discharge anomalies in the different basins. So we have approximately 1,200 basins here. We had a threshold of how the basins were calculated, and what we see here with the colors is how much stream flow was, what was the mean average stream flow in 2022 in comparison to the 30 years hydrological normal of that particular basin. So how much was, or how can we rank 2022 stream flow in comparison to the normal of that particular basin? This is what we see in the colors. So the brown being the drier areas and the green being the areas with more abundance. And what you can see here is that more than 55% of the entire globe was under non-normal conditions, which is alarming. The next slide, please. What we see here is the anomaly in mean annual inflow into selected reservoirs. So why do we show reservoirs? Is that it gives us an idea about how much water resources are available for pumped usage, for managed aquifer, for managed or human uses. And the patterns that we saw in the stream flow is also very much similar or in line with the reservoirs. And the sizes here shows us the size of the dots corresponds to the size of the reservoirs, showing that there are very large size reservoirs which was in a very dry condition, which is again alarming. The next slide, please. We show here the anomaly in the terrestrial water storage. Terrestrial water storage is a summation of groundwater, stream flow, reservoirs, soil moisture, ET, etc. So everything that's there, the summation of freshwater resources, so to say. And here we see a similar pattern for how did the terrestrial water storage in 2022 rank in comparison to the normal of that particular point. This is not done in the scale of basins, but rather in pixels, because this is based on remotely sensed data. And the reference period here corresponds to the reference periods of the GRACE mission, which was the source of this information. Similarly, from similar data, we also have soil moisture. Let's not go into details because it shows what we have done with the different kinds of data sources. And this is based on this result here shows how much slow fraction in each catchment was there in comparison to the 30 years climatology. So in this report, we try to capture the status of each variable in comparison to their reference periods. Next slide, please. And we also give an overview of the high impact hydrological events throughout the year. And this can also be corresponded to the anomalies that we saw in the stream flow, in the soil moisture, and so on. Next slide, please. So what's the added value of having such a global assessment? It gives us a potential to create easy to understand global overview, and this is done at a global scale, and particularly in context of geopolitics, because we are talking about water diplomacy, geopolitics in this session. With these kind of independent assessments, we can help the countries in identifying the hotspots at a global scale to inform planning and policy making. And we can also inform and guide intergovernmental processes and discussions which are related to shared water resources. Next slide, please. Yeah. And with that, I thank you on behalf of Elena again.
Can you maybe now hear me? No, still not.
Okay. Our big hands to Sulagna. With a 1 minute warning, she gave an excellent presentation. So thank you so much, Sulagna. Also, DSG from WMO was very happy with this. So I think she found the right words to give your presentation.
Thank you.
Good. With this, we are a little bit late because of all the technical issues from the beginning, and we move on to the second speaker. We have 3 speakers before we open up for a short discussion. And it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Arvind Kumar from the India Water Foundation. Dr. Kumar is the president and founder of the India Water Foundation. He is a well-known strategist and key influencer in the water and development sector with some almost 30 years of experience. He's an author of some 500 publications. An author, a columnist, he writes columns, and sorry for this, and as a human rights activist. He works in water-related, particular ecosystem-based adaptation solutions, water, food, energy, nexus, etc., etc. Over to Dr. Kumar. I hope this works.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening,
Technology.
everyone at the outmost. I'm audible?
Unmute, please.
Yeah, I'm audible. Hello. Yeah. Next slide. In my presentation, I would speak on these 5 key areas about Brahmaputra Basin, overview, major stumbling blocks for cooperation, case study of Barak-Meghna Basin, how to foster cooperation in the Brahmaputra Basin, what can be its impacts. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. The Brahmaputra is a transboundary river which flows from through China, India, and the Bangladesh. It is the 9th largest river in the world and the 6th largest in Asia, and with the heaviest rainfall in the region. This region is one of the most eco-fragile zones in the world, battling with disaster like conflicts, floods, erosion, landslides, etc. Despite all these, this region has immense potential for regional development, providing life-supporting services to about 70 million people who are dependent on the river for their livelihood, food, recreation, transportation, and many more. Next slide. We initiated our work in northeastern part of India in 2010, especially in Meghalaya state of India. And with our analysis of more than a decade in the region, these are some of the major challenges the region is facing. There is long history of conflict that exists among the basin countries over management of the shared rivers, leading to the lack of trust among the riparian countries, little or no political will for cooperation. The absence of institutional arrangement and agreement leads to governance challenges, apart from challenges emanating from the climate change. There is the absence of people-centric approach, multilateral diplomacy, etc. Massive flooding, land erosion, overexploitation of water, excessive fishing, habitat degradation, and fragmentation, exploitation of floodplains, climate change impacts are major challenges. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah. This talk about the transboundary cooperation in the Barak-Meghna Basin started in 2012, adopting vertical approach, ecosystem-based adaptation, and horizontal approach, water, energy, food nexus, which has already been integrated by several countries in their national policies. The talks concluding with the signing of treaty in 2022 by government of Bangladesh and India. The treaties on the water sharing from Kusiara River and the drinking water withdrawal from the Feni River in India. The Barak-Meghna Basin success story was documented by IWF and published by INBO in August 2017. The benefits sharing in the Barak-Meghna Basin ranges from economic to ecological benefits and many more. Next slide. As evident from this image, the basin is home to 2 Ramsar sites, more than 1,000 wetlands, 29 transboundary territories, dense forest, home to more than 30,000 migratory birds, 10 species from the IUCN Red List, and 22 the Convention of International Trade in Endangered Species of the Wild Fauna and Flora. Land species, also various sites of tourism and irrigation. Next slide. Next slide. The basin, previous slide. Yeah. The basin has more than 60 different policy instruments for the management of the natural resources, including water, biodiversity, fisheries, and forest ecological benefits, like addressing biodiversity loss, water availability, and pollution control, etc. The economic benefits are terms for access to energy due to the hydropower corporation, availability of water for irrigation during lean periods, leading to high crop yield, fewer disasters, low cost in damage control, less conflict over shared waters, improvement in relations between riparian countries, and integration in other fields beyond water, like increased regional trade, transboundary transportation and development, etc. Next slide. Yeah, the diverse set of benefits and the impact of the Barak-Meghna River Basin Cooperation can be manifold in a basin like Brahmaputra, which more riparian countries can avail, and can be augmented by using the multi-track water diplomacy framework, which help to diagnose water problems across sectors, administrative boundaries, and at different level of the governance, mapping multi-stakeholder interest and ensuring inclusive participation and engagement, assessing trade-off and costing of the implementing best policy scenario among riparian countries, negotiating benefits sharing agreements, sharing of knowledge, data, applying international water laws or agreements with consensus, and finally strengthening institutional arrangements for the implementation of agreements and treaties. Next. Yeah. Apart from the ecological, economic, and other benefits, transboundary water cooperation shall be beneficial in achieving net zero targets by supporting the developments and the implementation of the adaptation strategies and measures. Countries like India and China are well equipped with technologically, so countries like Nepal, Bhutan, and Bangladesh, which are graduating from least developed, can benefit immensely in diverse sectors like renewable energy, science, technology, artificial intelligence, enhanced human development, etc. It shall lead to timely SDG achievements, educate climate and water actions, addressing climate and disaster mitigations. Multifarious economic opportunities shall lead to the economic upliftment and integrating optimized financing, improved data, information, enhanced capacity, innovation, and good governance. When it all comes together, it is a transversality approach for peace, stability, and shared prosperity in the basin. Next slide. So for further information, please go through my publication on the same, and thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar. Thank you, and also for keeping the time. We hand over to the next speaker, which is Dr. Faji Maina. Faji works at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in the US. She did her PhD in hydrology actually in France, in Strasbourg. But since then, she has joined the NASA, and she has been working on the development of mathematical models to address water resources, particularly in transboundary settings in North America, Europe, and Africa. Over, please.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, next slide, please. So we are going to stay still in the region of the Brahmaputra, like looking at the border region, the high mountain Asia. And high mountain Asia is basically the largest reservoir of fresh water outside the polar zone, and is a transboundary region because it does cover 9 countries: India, China, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and many other of these countries. Next slide. So high mountain Asia hosts most of the Asia prominent rivers basins such as the Ganges, the Indus, the Irrawaddy, and these rivers have allowed civilization to thrive for centuries. Next slide. This region is a complex mountainous region, as you know, because it does host the world's highest peak at Mount Everest. And the particularities of the region, a region like high mountain Asia, is because these mountains have physical and biological features that make them really sensitive to changes in climate. Next slide. So as a result, because these mountains are really sensitive to climate, high mountain Asia is one of the most vulnerable water tower on Earth, and warming in the region is basically double the average. As you can see here, we have trend in temperature coming from era 5 temperature data set, and these increases in temperature trigger snow melt and other things. Next slide. In addition to warming, high mountain Asia is home to over 2 billion people if we look at the broader region, because we have China and India in the region. Next slide. So as a result, because we have this overpopulation and the densely populated region, we can see that groundwater use is one of the highest in the world. You can go next. And this is like one of the well-known data set that we have coming from NASA Greece, when we see really how groundwater has been depleting over India as a result of agricultural activities. Next slide. On top of that, high mountain Asia is also experiencing one of the highest rate of greening on Earth. The Earth has been greening in response to global warming. As you can see on the right, we have we have greening on Earth, and one of the hotspots of greening on Earth is basically happening over high mountain Asia. Zooming in the region on the left, you can see that this greening is basically happening over the Indus and the Ganges basin, and is basically due to irrigation. Next slide. So our objectives here is to be able to understand how water resources respond to all these factors, either it's global warming, groundwater depletion, and greening. One of the challenges that we have when we try to look at high mountain Asia is we do not have data. The region is harsh, the environment is harsh, and also it's transboundary region, so it's like we have a lot of issue of data sharing. Satellite data provide reliable spatio-temporal estimate of hydrological component, and basically in this study we show how we use satellite data to be able to reconstruct the hydrology of high mountain Asia and to understand how the water resources respond to these factors. Next slide. So we do it in the land surface modeling. Basically what this model simulates surface energy, fluxes, hydrology, and carbon cycle from the bedrock all the way to the lower atmosphere. So we can really capture with this model all the processes that are governing the changes in water resources in the region. Next slide. Looking at how we use satellite data to be able to inform this model, first, when we want to study hydrology, we need precipitation data. For that, we use a bunch of precipitation data coming from NASA and ESA, because precipitation is highly uncertain in the region, so we try to use a bunch of satellite to be able to do that. Next. Then we need snow, because we have like the Tibetan Plateau and a lot of snow activities going. For that, we use a snow analysis coming from NASA MODIS. Next. Soil moisture is also important in the region because we have irrigation, we have warming, snow melt. So we use data coming from ESA soil moisture, which is a bunch of satellites, basically. Next. As I said, greening is really important in the region. To be able to incorporate these processes, we use NASA MODIS for leaf area index. Next. We have irrigation that's happening due to agricultural activities, and for that we use applied irrigated water coming from remote sensing. Next. And of course, groundwater, because groundwater has been depleted in the region, and for that we use NASA's Grace terrestrial water storage. So next. So one of the things that we have been trying to look at is like, we have this model now, if we have a lot of satellite going into the model to be able to reproduce what's happening in the region, then we can really try to understand how the region responds to factor. Here I'm showing the changes in stream flow over the Indus and the Ganges basin. And with such a model, we can really try to understand how those activities, either agricultural activities or climate change, is impacting the stream flow in the region. On the left-hand side, we have change in stream flow when we have agricultural activity and changes in climate. And this clearly shows a decrease in stream flow. On the right, we do have changes in stream flow when we only consider changes in climate, not agricultural activities. So we can clearly see that agricultural activities change the trend in stream flow and decrease the stream flow in the region. Next slide. And this trend, decreasing trend in stream flow, basically is what we see in the region. Next. So why this is happening? We have the stream flow that is decreasing in the Ganges and the Brahmaputra, and the highest decreases in stream flow is basically happening in Bangladesh in the Brahmaputra basin. And when we look at the trend in precipitation changes in climate, the precipitation has clearly been increasing in the region, but still the stream flow is decreasing. Next, can I play? This is coming from agricultural activities because we have a lot of groundwater depletion, and the groundwater depletion is basically happening over the Ganges basin. But even if the groundwater depletion is happening over the Ganges basin, the highest decreases in stream flow is observed over the Brahmaputra basin. This is because the Ganges basin has an increase in precipitation, whereas the Brahmaputra has a decrease in precipitation. So even if you have the highest decrease in groundwater that's happening over the Ganges in India, the stream flow in Bangladesh, it has the highest decrease. Next. Yes, so take-home message is high mountain Asia, it has one of the highest rates of global warming on Earth. And then in addition, we have agricultural activities and gaining that are really changing the system in the region. We use a bunch of satellite data in a land-to-land surface model to be able to represent all these processes. And something that we have been able to do is like trying to understand how groundwater depletion in the Ganges Brahmaputra impact the stream flow, notably in the Bay of Bengal. Next, you want to be the under? Yeah, so, and one thing that we can see is clearly with only the changes in climate, we have an increase in water storage, but agricultural activities is really changing the dynamic of the system. Next, that should be all. With that, I would like to thank you.
With that, we would like to thank you. Thank you so much. It was a very nice presentations we had from focus now mainly on South Asia. We are running a little bit late, and to the best of knowledge, there's no question in the chat, and therefore I would like to move on to the panel question directly. And we have 4 panelists, and if there's questions for the presenters, I kindly invite you to ask the questions in the chat already, and hopefully at the end we have time, and the presenters stay with us till the end of the session, please. We have 4 presenters today from private sector as well as from public or UN organizations, from Google, from Danone, as well from the FAO and from the World Bank. And I would briefly like to introduce each speaker after each of the question. And I start, we just follow the order here, which we see in front of us. And I would like to start with Dr. Gray Nering. Gray, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Good to see you. Last time in Geneva, now here online. And Gray is a research scientist at Google, has been a professor before, and he's working particularly on applied machine learning technologies for hydrological modeling, flood forecasting in particularly, and bringing research to operations. I more or less have the same question for each of the panelists, and would appreciate in the first round if you could shed some light on some activities that you are doing, in this case at Google, to improve hydrological data availability, better services to countries, and you might want to share some case studies with us. And I would like to ask each of the panelists to kind of answer this in 2-3 minutes, that we maybe have time for a second round. So shed some light on the activities in which you are involved to improve data availability, access to better service, particularly in transboundary settings. Over.
Fantastic. So do you want me to go now, or would you introduce the others first?
I introduce one by one. People forget otherwise. And over to Gray.
Thank you. Okay, so at Google, we're working mostly on flood forecasting, and we use AI-based models where data is critical. And so we have several initiatives to sort of help gather data and organize data. And our team's objective is to make as much of that data open source. So almost nothing that we do is proprietary. And just to be perfectly clear, we are in the private sector, so I think it's very important to say that out loud, that we really are focusing on making as much data accessible as possible. And we really actually rely a lot on WMO past efforts for a lot of our data. One of the things that we're doing now, or we did earlier this year, is we released a public data set which includes some computer code called Caravan. And Caravan is a set of Python modules that are designed to standardize streamflow data and weather data that are used for models that flood forecasting models and other types of watershed-based, streamflow-based hydrology models. So if anyone has data that they'd like to make open source and they'd like to add it to a larger growing data set, we have this Caravan data set. There's a paper in Nature Scientific Data, and we'd be more than happy to help you put data in or get data from the Caravan data set. Feel free to contact me anytime.
Thank you. That was very clear. Maybe I don't see a question in the chat directly. Maybe we move on to the other three panelists, and please stay online. And thanks so much for spending your Sunday afternoon with us. And pleasure to introduce Jehan Farbe as the next speaker. Jehan, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Good to hear you. Good to see you. Excellent. Jehan is the director for water sustainability at Danone company, where she leads large programs, in particular in the field of climate change adaptation strategies with a number of partners, governments, but also other private sector companies, civil society, etc. She has broad skills ranging from technical expertise in climate change adaptation project in the corporate sector, but also related to finance and public policy, etc. And she has been working in Africa, Europe, Latin America, and Southeast Asia, all over the world. Jehan, same question for you. Do you mind to share a couple of your activities that you and your company are doing to improve data availability for hydrological and water data? And you might want to share some case studies in this field. Over.
Thank you very much for the invitations. Very pleased to be with you today. Thank you, Gray, for the invitations. We will receive some data from Danone, I guess. It's nice to, we're sharing the same value and visions about the fact that data should be open source and not proprietary. So it's very nice to hear. At Danone, so we have taken as one of the guiding principles, we are having to do all the interventions on the ground based on science. That's why we have a very large network of hydrogeologists, 17 of them that are based in many different geographies where we are facing water-related stress and issues or challenges. Those hydrogeologists, they develop water cycle studies with academic universities, developing and partnering and supporting PhD studies that are taking over 3 or 4 years to make sure that we have a clear understanding of the context where we would like to intervene locally. We are a strong believer that if we have the right data, the right science, we can design the proper interventions and reach larger impact. That's why it's so important. Each time we're having those data, we share them as well with other private companies, but as well with municipalities, with civil society, trying to support the design and the highest level of impact we can have in a specific regions. And lately, we have been as well working in partnership with new tech providers like Waterplan. It's good to have platforms and to input on those platforms, making sure that we can give data in a neutral manner, let's say, that can be used by others as well in the design of their projects. So this is mainly how we work on data and science. And yes, I'll follow up with Gray.
Thank you very much. Very positive about the statements you made about data sharing with local partners, but also with Google. So it's seldom that you have in a webinar a commitment to share more data. So much appreciated.
Yes, because we have to be pre-competitive over the resource. So if we compete over the water resource, at the end we're all going to be in trouble. So it's very important that private sector is taking the commitments to be pre-competitive over the water resource.
Super. We much appreciate that attitude, and we move on from the private sector to a public sector or international organization representative, and I would like to invite Livia Peiser. Livia, are you?
Hi, Stefan. Yes, I'm here.
Yes, we hear you and we see you.
Hello.
Perfect.
Yep.
Now, how it works, yeah. And Livia has been working with the Land and Water Division of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, for the last 12 years. She has been working particularly on spatial analysis of water resources assessments. And what is particularly exciting when what Livia and her colleagues have been working on is utilizing new data sets, satellite data sets, to map continuously map the water productivity and really put that into a monitoring network at the FAO, make that also publicly available. So I'm introducing your CV. I hope I didn't preempt nice statements, and you now to share some examples how you contribute to hydrological data availability, better access, in particular in a transboundary water context. Over.
Yes, thank you, Stefan. And I'll keep it short and just mention three, well, let's say products that I think are of interest in this session. Of course, being FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, we are very much focused around water use in agriculture. That is, of course, by the way, the largest sector, water using sector globally. 70% about of water use is withdrawn for agriculture. So that's why it's important that we maintain open data, and I also welcome the word of the previous speakers on data sharing. Of course, we champion that being a UN organization, and we always make all our data openly accessible. So the most important, let's say, product that we maintain is Aquastat. That's the global water global information system on water and agriculture, on which many other global water applications are based, because we maintain this database with data by country since 1960. And that is also the basis, of course, of the SDG 6.4 to targets of indicators of SDG 6.4. So that is, yeah, thanks for putting the link online. And the Aquastat has just been, revamped. So there's a new data dissemination system that, speaking of innovation, uses a more, advanced technologies for data sharing and integrating into existing data platform. So that brings to the second point. That is also what Stefan was mentioning. That is my let's say day-to-day job, is the working on support on the development of the FAO Vapor database. That's a remote sensing database that uses open access remote sensing information for near real-time monitoring of land and water productivity. So that means that every 10 days in our portal, and I'll put the link later, you can find information on, for example, actual evapotranspiration and biomass developments. And these things together give us an idea of how much agricultural output is obtained per unit of water consumed. And that's, for us, is a very important indicator to understand how good we are in using the increasing scarce water resources around the world. And I'm also happy to announce that this database that is for the moment only, let's say, focusing on Africa and the Near East, will be available globally by the end of the year. So, and to conclude, I'll just mention that the third thing I wanted to say is that together with WMO, we are working to develop a global water data portal. And that's will put together the efforts of different UN organizations and maybe eventually also other partners. And as a teaser, I just want to say that on Thursday, 24th, in room C4 in Stockholm at the World Water Week, we will be discussing more about this water data portal and discuss with users what they would like to see in this portal. So join us on Thursday for learning more on this global water data portal. Over to you, Stefan. Thank you.
One slide back, sorry. Always if several people operate the same computer. Hey, thank you so much, Livia. This was very interesting. I hope everybody listened very carefully and share the link. You know, soon there will be a global data set updated every 10 days about the evaporation fluxes, biomass, water productivity. This is exciting. And I see Gray already getting an AI algorithm programming in the background, how to utilize this data best. We have one more panelist, and then we hope for a lively discussion, as lively as it can be in an online setting. It's a pleasure now to have the fourth panelist. It's Dr. Nagaraya Rao Harshardeep, well known to the global water community as Harsh. I hope, Harsh, it's okay if I shorten the name a little bit. You were with us before. Can we hear and see you?
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes, and we see you in front of a tropical island.
Great, yes.
Harsh is the global lead for disruptive technology at the World Bank, where he has been working for 25 years. He also leads the hydroinformatics sections at the World Bank, and he has been involved in numerous projects. And for some of us who have been going to international conferences, we had the benefits of really being informed by him several times, and really innovative solutions about global data, hydroinformatics in the field, water, environment, climate, etc. Same question, like for every panelist. Harsh, do you mind to share some activities that you are busy with at this moment, which really helps to improve data availability, and particularly in transboundary settings? Over.
Great, Stefan, thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure to be here. It brought back lots of memories for me because I joined the bank 27 years ago, particularly to work on the Ganges-Brahmaputra basin at that time. And cooperation still seems far off even today, as it was at that time. And a lot of it is because of an issue that everybody has brought to the fore, which is the issue about data access, in a proper format, covering in a holistic manner the water cycle in each area. And that's one of the challenges that we've been trying to see if we can help with at the bank, both in terms of financing programs at national level. For example, in India, for many decades, we've been supporting a national hydrology project in some form or the other to try and get more data and put more information in the public domain, which is happening very slowly. Similarly, this is also in pretty much every major country in the world, developing country. We've got programs in this regard, from Malawi and Angola to Vietnam and Iraq and other places. Similarly, on the regional front, I think the bank has been doing a lot as the primary player on the technical assistance side on transboundary basin organizations, whether it be on the Nile Basin or parts of it like Lake Victoria and so on, or the Senegal, Niger, Mekong, Amazon, and so on as a part of these, helping support both improvement of hydroinformatics and other systems. But we're also trying to do these at global levels, and this is where we're also trying to build on everybody's work. So we've been trying to create some learning tools. I'm posting one in the chat, for example, where we work with the Open Learning Campus to try and showcase what other people are producing and what the bank itself is producing on different aspects of hydroinformatics, including recorded webinars with many of the institutions that are represented here. And also to work pretty much on the 3 I's, as we call it, on information, which is mainly to try and go up the data value chain, as we heard, from data to information to knowledge to decision support, leveraging a lot of these new tools on AI, machine learning, and other aspects. And on institutions, trying to get institutions to work together, change mindsets, put more information in the public domain. When I was an undergrad in civil engineering in India in a place called IIT Madras, all my water resources classes used data from the Colorado River because all the India data was secret, which is a pretty stupid way to use academia. But it's a situation even now pretty much in every country in the developing world, or even in the developed world, and even in many places in Europe and so on, where not one river gauge worth of information is in the public domain in a user-friendly, machine-readable format, right? So this is the thing where we are starting at a very low level globally, and it's because it's nobody's job to collect the data, and that's something which we need to get out of, and needs a lot of investment, both on the monitoring systems as well as the systems to actually use the data. And we'll be happy to follow up with many of the presenters here to see how we can help popularize some of their data and also see if we can create a better system for especially in situ data sharing, because Earth observation and analytics are in a good spot, I think, but the in situ data availability and also good capacity building tools are the things that seem to be missing parts that we need to all work on together.
Thank you, Harsh. Thank you very much. And I see in the chat there's a lot of appreciation also by the private sector with this open attitude that was shown by our two speakers from Google as well as from Danone. And we have some of the technical questions were already answered. There was some links were shared, and so we can skip that. But we have other questions. You wanna read this out? I have a colleague in the room who will read out the question, and then we hand it over.
Okay. Yeah. So we have a question from Tina who says that private sector is ready to share data, whereas the government organizations are not so open. So should we really go ahead and rely completely on private sectors and work with them? And then we have a contradictory question which says we cannot really go so much ahead with the private sector because these are profit oriented and it might put us into a risk of water security. So Modi Alfanze thinks that it might be a good idea to go on with PPP, private-public partnership, to have a good balance. So I put this question open to the panel, Gray, Danon, Harsh, and Olivia. What do you think? Quick answers, please.
Yeah, so let me just say, from our perspective, one of the things that we hope to do in the private sector, is to sort of put some pressure on the public sector. So even in the United States, let's just talk about flood forecasting in the United States. One of the things that we're hoping to do is demonstrate the capability of AI and open data for agencies, even agencies like NOAA in the United States. And then we expect, because we have resources and we have the ability to be flexible in a way that some government agencies don't, but if there's an example, then we might be able to help show what that path might look like. I think that's one of the roles that we feel like we're playing. Yeah.
Thanks,
Just a quick point here is I don't think it's an either or issue because, for example, right now in India itself, we are financing many programs, including Ganga and now the hydrology program as well, which is where the governments are embracing the private sector in terms of being, doing monitoring as a service and so on. So where instead of doing the old way where you say, here are some money to go put these monitoring stations and, go monitor these things, instead to try and say, look, at these locations, you want these parameters to be monitored at this frequency and accuracy and so on. And then you pay for the data. So that's the kind of approach that's being followed nowadays to try and see if you can create a subscription type service for monitoring, in which case both private sector and government can work together, in addition to both sharing data in the public domain so that they can be integrated together as well.
If I can briefly add to that, we also have experience in working with private sector in many countries in Africa and the Near East, and that's often a good push towards a higher reliability and higher trust in the data, because if you see that people are investing money in that, then you are more prone to believe that this is worth using it. So yeah, I think there's as Harsh said, there's a role for everybody, and often private sector can help translate this huge amount of data that we have through the new technologies in ready to use information for the different types of users. We cannot do that alone, and so we need all users to join forces. So I welcome these partnerships. Over.
Shehan?
I will just exactly share the same thoughts. I think the water is a global common good. It's a shared resources. We are saying that we're all the dynamic even around trade and availability of some food will be changing. We we need to work together, otherwise it's not going to work. So indeed, it's not an either or, it's just a win-win to be in capacity to work together. Do we do it enough? No. Are we all ready to do it? No, still not, but we definitely need to start.
Yes, we need to start, and it's really about the partnership. And I think the question was maybe putting it a bit differently than you and others presented it, because it's not about replacing the public sector in data collection, but kind of supplement and not kind of question the authority of the key role of the public sector in many of the questions, but really finding effective partnerships to actually increase the knowledge base, increase data and information to provide better services. So I really all four of you kind of think along these partnership lines. One more question is coming. I hear that the Deputy Secretary General from WMO is now able to speak. Is that correct? Can we give it one more try? And WMO does a lot of interesting work and related to help to quality assure public-private partnerships and the products.
Stefan, let's first make sure I can really speak. Can I? Okay, right. So first of all, my fault. I couldn't update my app, and then it took a lot of hell of time to really re-download it. Now it's working, thanks. So first of all, huge thanks to Sulagna. It was her work, all this report, so it was only fair that she presents her own work herself, and I couldn't have done it better. So applause, really, really well done. Just few things which I would have injected in the presentation, although I couldn't. Most of you, or not all, probably you know that we are for ages doing the global climate state of climate report for ages, and WMO is now 150 years, and the main power of WMO is standards, technical standards. So more than 40 years, state of global climate report with the defined indicators are informing the world. But why wouldn't we do it with water? It's a reason that Sulagna explained. We have poor networks which are declining, and data sharing is not the strength. So one could say it's WMO job to get this data in and out. Yes, of course, WMO has unified data policy. There are requirements, there are standards, but the quality of network still remains very poor, and variables we want to measure require like extensive network building. Do we have time to build this for decades or not? No. So that's why we do need partnership, absolutely. And the question which was just discussed right now about how can we use sources from the business or from private sector, it's no longer the question whether we could or not. It's a question about authority and code of ethics. And here WMO made a big step forward. WMO has developed public-private engagement formally, explaining everyone where governments should remain responsible, where the information, where are the red lines, that is to say, like warning the people to evacuate, and where there is a huge space of co-beneficial information sharing between the two or three, or also academia. So it's quite a complex question, but I just want to tell you, don't think it's new. It's already in the heads of both governments and business how we should advance. And the only way, and I'm very glad that also both Stefan and Sulagna are leading this event, it is their job, first report on global water resource assessment, and the coming one. We started without having proper information we thought we should have, but we started combining all the sources and models and remote sensing and ground truth in situ. And I'm sure that we will advance. These reports are not only important to know what happens, they are important for us to predict better the possible high impact weather or extreme events, and to minimize the risk of losing lives. Just one last thing I'll say. This map of disasters, 8 droughts and 9 floods over the last year. Each of them is kind of, we can break in tears talking about each of them, but just one in Pakistan, it was compound event, it was floods, strong monsoon, it was blockage, and it was also glacier lake rupture. So three components which came together at the same time created devastation that weather service and government could hardly cope with, I would, if not to say not cope with. So I think that just in the near future, we will, with all your help, the more information we can pull into this assessment, the better. But very soon, I'm sure we will come to the idea that we would need a 10-year assessment, because ENSO fluctuates and La Nina, El Nino phase changes, and next year you will see different picture. So we need that, and we need this as an input into risk assessment and disaster planning, besides many, many, many other things. Thanks very much just for this short intervention.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And we are very happy that it worked out eventually with the technology. We're running a little late because of the hiccups we had at the beginning, and we come to the final part. And a big thank you to all four panelists. If we would have a room, we would all clap and stand up. And also to the three presenters we had at the beginning, Dr. Abid Kumar and Dr. Fajid Maina, and Sulagna Mishra / Elena Marinkova. Over to our organizers of the seminar.
Yeah, thanks, Stefan. We're not going to try to summarize everything that we heard. This was wonderful. I will say two things, though. One, Elena, thank you very much for making this point about a code of ethics. And I think it's really critical that all of us who are providing data look at the ethical implications of making data available. And that's something we didn't talk a lot about. But again, data can be disruptive, and understanding what that data means to these users and how it gets distributed is a critically important part of the conversation. And the other thing is, I do just want to thank Harsh as well for raising this idea of a marketplace for data. You know, a key challenge that I think we face is we did a lot of data networks. WMO is well familiar with this. We did a lot of data networks throughout the 60s, 70s, only to find them all to collapse in the 80s and 90s. And the idea is, how do we create a marketplace for data that allows data providers to recover costs for data production? And that's something we all want to give a lot of thought to. So thank you for all of that. Martina.
Thank you, Aaron, for these reflections. And I do hope that we will have a chance to discuss these issues also in our two upcoming sessions, tomorrow and on Tuesday. And we will meet either in person here in Stockholm or online. And I would like to also say huge thanks to all of our speakers. Thank you, all the participants, for staying with us here on Sunday evening on the Central European Time. And of course, our co-sponsors from the Finnish Ministry for Foreign Affairs, the Finnish Water Forum, the United States Institute of Peace, the International Crisis Group, and the World Meteorological Organization. And we do hope to see you tomorrow and on Monday. And if you have any questions or wonder about anything, please do reach out to us. And we will be happy to share with you any links that you may missed in the discussion. And the final thing, please do fill in our questionnaire. We will post a link, and you can also see the QR code. We would like to hear back from you how you like the session, how you like the topic, and please do also share with us ideas for other sessions in the future at the future World Water Weeks, because we would love to hear from you how to evolve this very important issue on data, innovation, and technology. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.